I can't recall the few seconds after the accident. I only know for certain that there had been an accident. That somehow, while driving home from work, poorly secured bars had come loose from the truck ahead of me. We'd only been going about 40 miles per hour each, but at that speed, the objects were like javelins. They came spearing through my window, impaling me through the skull. I had no final moments during which my life flashed before my eyes, nor any actual realization that my life had ended at that moment. It was as if a switch had been thrown. Consciousness, once vibrant and aware, instantly and wholly deleted. What came after, who knows how long, was an experience barely describable. A muddy, insubstantial half-sentience, during which I had no conception of self, no perception of anything beyond a dim-minded awareness of wrong feeling. It can be said that I emerged from this posthumous secondary existence, because when I regained consciousness as I had known it, it felt as if I had been pulled from some black and depthless ocean. I came screaming into sentience like some newborn child. I found myself standing on a flat and even surface, which spanned blackly in all directions. I didn't become aware of the figure before me until I had felt over my body, completely naked, and counted all my pieces and parts. This figure, who towered over me by several feet, wore armor of sorts, polished silver, decorated beautifully. I was mesmerized, and initially thought that anything so beautiful must be benevolent. But when my eyes passed over the steel and met the face atop the body, I saw the most terrifying, physically petrifying thing. The thing, for it surely warranted no other classification, was like some crossbreed of species, some abomination born of a cruel god's experimentation. It had the skull shape of a jackal, but eyes, so many of them, protruded from the forehead, all fiercely staring, none blinking. Plumes of black smoke rose from its tri-nostriled snout, fading almost seamlessly into the blackness around us. Its scalp was bald, but the surface shifted in waves, as if worm-like things crawled beneath its skin. I tried to look away, but the many-eyed demon seemed to transfix me with its Hadean stare, and I could only shiver and dumbly return its gaze. After an immeasurable period, the figure finally spoke to me. I couldn't hope to adequately relate the utter hideousness of that creature's voice, so I won't waste time trying to vaguely and ineffectually relate it now. The words it spoke are similarly irreproducible, being of a language that seemed both familiar in some animal-brained, instinctual way, and yet disconcertingly alien as well. Its words must have been some sort of spell or malediction, because I found myself instantly transported back to the driver's seat of my car, a few moments before one of the beams disembarked the truck ahead and bored through my skull. Having then total recollection of the events both before and after that fateful moment, I jerked the steering wheel, swerving out of the way just as the restraining strap came loose. I saw the beam fly past, and watched as it found its way into the windshield of the car behind me, killing the driver in the same grisly way that I'd died. I came to a stop, as did the light accumulation of traffic around me. The affected vehicle drove on until it smashed into the truck, rear-ending it and sending more beams toppling out of the bed. These fell haphazardly, but landed on the street without striking anyone else. I got out of my car, as did a few other people from theirs, and I heard someone say, "Good reaction, man. You barely got out of the way." I mumbled out some response, still shocked by the circumstances, specifically my death and subsequent resurrection, rather than the narrow miss. The crowd that had gathered walked as one to the car into which the spears had gone, edging tentatively towards it, unsure whether or not they wanted to see the gruesomeness therein. I was the first to reach it and peered into the front of the car. I would say the scene was unimaginable if I hadn't experienced it myself. The driver of the car was a woman, early 30s, and one of the poles had gone straight through her skull, as it had mine. Another had gone through her chest. In the passenger seat was her unharmed daughter, who stared wide-eyed and speechless at her dead mother. Footsteps came and went, moans were uttered, screams erupted, and sirens arose among the ordinary raucous of the city. Someone had removed the girl from the car and was holding her, vainly trying to keep the girl's face turned away from the car. It wasn't until the ambulance had arrived that the girl started screaming. The gravity, the reality of the situation not setting in until those augurs of misfortune arrived. People came and went, until pedestrians and motorists were pushed back by emergency workers. Despite the shouting, the murmur of conversation, the still blaring sirens, and everything else going on. Despite all this, the girl's screams maintained auditory predominance. It wasn't right. I knew that. I had survived. I had been inexplicably spared through the mercy of some chthonic entity, even though I hadn't done anything in life to warrant such treatment. But what about the mercy for the woman and the now motherless child? Without thinking, ignorant to all else except the girl's hysteric wailing, I picked up a shard of glass, ignoring the battered car it had come from, and used it to slit my throat. This death was much slower, much more painful, and did in fact provide something resembling the passage of life's precious moments before my eyes. As the blood fell freely from the laceration in my neck, I replayed the memorable events of my life, albeit with perhaps more gloss and sentimentality than the reality of them. As I lay there, bleeding out, I imagined how my life could have been different if I had left work earlier, or stayed later, or taken a different way home. As the faces above me gathered, terror-stricken expressions and agape mouths hovering phantasmally, I silently prayed my hastily conceived plan would work. I again found myself in that boundless and black plain, kneeling naked before the nightly demon. Its face was just as terrifying as before, although I sensed a sort of mirth about its demeanor, as if it were amused by my return. Without preamble, it again recited that ineffable oration. Only this time, somehow, I could understand the words. It told me that I could have my life back, that I could live many years beyond that unfortunate accident, if I only allowed the woman to die. But if I chose not to, I would be doomed to be its squire, perpetually enslaved, never allowed to pass on. It described itself as a barterer, and that I, through some pact with higher entities, had been consigned to its custody. I was supposedly not the first, and it offered every soul the very same deal. Save oneself at the cost of another, or become its thrall. It said that everyone, once fully comprehending the perpetuity of the deal, took the option to save themselves. It is in your nature, were its darkly spoken words. I asked it what such a purgatorial existence would entail, and I was informed that beyond the mundane duties required of an actual squire, I would also assist in the abduction and subjugation of souls. These targets selected at the whim of the creature, for no purpose beyond its sick amusement. I would not only watch, but would assist as well, in the ceaseless and eternal torture of these arbitrarily selected spirits. Its eyes stared collectively, each meeting mine in anticipation of the answer it expected. I needed no time to consider my options. The choice was clear. I told it that I would forego my resurrection and remain as its squire. But rather than help in the atrocities it so loved to commit, I demanded to be the subject of them. I insisted that it inflict its cruelties upon me, that I be placed on the rack, butchered on the slab, dipped in the pits, and subjected to all other damnable activities it enjoyed dealing out. This hot-spirited declaration made it laugh. Its jackal-like mouth let out the most obscene cackling, and the smoke which plumed from his nostrils curled thinly, as if it were twin spirits dancing in the air. Rather than verbally respond to my amendment of the deal, it silently withdrew a sword from a scabbard at its side. The blade gleamed brilliantly, even more than the armor. It held the sword up for a moment, as if to allow me to admire it, then brought the blade down on my neck, severing my head. I came to awareness as something impacted the passenger seat beside me. I slammed on the brakes, and my car came safely to a stop. The truck ahead of me stopped as well, as did traffic behind me. 2 poles had been embedded in the passenger seat, impaling no one. I was alone in the vehicle. The occupants of the car behind me, the woman and her daughter, were unharmed. As I stepped out of my car, I heard a voice speak above the clamor of the street.
Many accept the Jackal's offer. Very few agree to their own enslavement. But none, of any species we oversee, have ever proffered themselves to be the subjugated. For that, we have intervened and spared you both. Our jurisdiction supersedes that of the Jackals, and we feel it would be good to pardon you. Apparently, humanity has more kindness in its heart than we predicted.
As the speech, which only I had heard, came to its end, the woman and her daughter left their car and came to check on me. Hey guys and ladies, thanks for watching. Links to all my shit are down in the description. Come follow me on social media, join my Discord, and check out my other channel if you want. That was another story that I've done by WeirdBryceGuy, and there's a link to his Reddit page down below. And that's about it. So, be good to animals, even people. Sit.
Jackal, snämar, bergsbus, rish. Many accept the Jackal's offer. Jackal. The skull shape of a jackal. Jackal. Apparently, humanity has more kindness in its heart than we predicted.